The bells of matins pierce through the pre-dawn darkness, their bronze voices calling us from dreams to devotion. I rise from my narrow cot, my feet finding the cold stone floor of my cell. Around me, 20 other souls stir in similar fashion, bound by the same sacred rhythm that hath governed our days these past 3 years. My name is Brother Thomas, though in this place names matter little. We are but vessels for the divine, our individual selves meant to dissolve like morning mist before the sun of Christ's love. Yet as I don my rough woolen habit and join the procession toward the chapel, I cannot escape the weight of my own thoughts, heavy as the iron key that Brother Aldrich carries to unlock the sacred doors. The monastery of St. Benedict sits like a stone crown upon the hill overlooking the valley of Whitmore. From these walls, naught can be seen save rolling green fields dotted with sheep, and beyond them, the dark line of ancient forests where wolves still howl beneath winter moon. 'Tis a place apart from the world, where time moves differently, measured not by the affairs of kings and merchants, but by the eternal cycle of prayer, work, and contemplation. As we file into the chapel, our sandaled feet whispering against worn stone, I take my place in the choir stalls. The familiar comfort of routine settles upon me like a well-worn cloak. Here, in this sacred space where generations of monks have lifted their voices in praise, I have found something approaching peace. The great crucifix above the altar seems to regard us with compassion, the painted wounds of Christ glowing softly in the candlelight. Brother Aldrich raises his arms, and we begin the ancient chant, our voices weaving together in harmonies that seem to touch the very vault of heaven. Deus in adjutorium meum intend. The Latin flows from our lips like water from a spring, each word polished smooth by centuries of repetition. In these moments, I forget the restlessness that sometimes gnaws at my heart, the questions that lurk in the shadows of my prayers. The service continues, and I find myself glancing toward the side chapel where our small scriptorium lies. There, beneath arched windows that will soon welcome the first rays of dawn, waits my true calling within these walls. For I am among the few here who can read and write with skill, having been educated in my youth at the cathedral school in Winchester before God called me to this cloistered life. After the morning prayers, we break our fast in silence, as is our custom. The refectory fills with the soft sounds of spoons against wooden bowls, the rustle of robes, the occasional cough echoing off the vaulted ceiling. I sit beside Brother Marcus, an elderly monk whose gentle eyes have seen nigh on 40 years within these walls. He nods to me with quiet warmth, and I return the gesture, grateful for his friendship in this place where speech is rationed like precious wine. The bread is coarse but nourishing, baked by our own hands from grain grown in our fields. The ale is thin but clean, drawn from wells blessed by St. Benedict himself, or so the stories tell. Simple fare for simple men, though I sometimes remember with a pang the rich foods of my childhood, my mother's honey cakes, the roasted capons served at my father's table during feast days. Such memories are distractions, I remind myself. The flesh remembers what the spirit must forget. When the meal ends, we disperse to our appointed tasks. Some tend the gardens, others work in the kitchens or the workshops where we craft the goods that help sustain our community. But my feet carry me to the scriptorium, that quiet sanctuary where knowledge lives in careful rows of parchment and ink. The morning light streams through the tall windows, illuminating the copying desk where I spend my days transcribing sacred texts. Today, I continue my work on a psalter, each letter formed with painstaking, each illumination painted with pigments mixed from precious minerals and ground shells. The work demands patience, precision, a steady hand, and a quieter heart. In the formation of each letter, I find a kind of prayer, a meditation that draws me closer to the divine mysteries hidden. Yet as I settle at my desk, arranging my quills and vials of ink, I cannot shake a strange restlessness that hath troubled me these past sennight. 'Tis not the first time such feelings have visited me. In my early months here, I struggled greatly with what the older brothers called the demon of acedia, a spiritual dryness, a listlessness of soul that can afflict those who live apart from the world's distractions. Brother Aldrich himself had counseled me through those dark days, reminding me that even the desert fathers faced such trials. The soul must be purified, he had said, his weathered hands folded in his lap as we sat in the garden. Like gold in the furnace, we must endure the fire that burns away all that is not of God. I had taken his words to heart, throwing myself more deeply into prayer and fasting, and gradually the darkness had lifted. But this new restlessness feels different, not the absence of feeling, but rather the presence of something I cannot name, a yearning that seems to pull at the very fabric of my vows. The morning passes quietly, the scratch of my quill the only sound in the scriptorium. Through the windows, I can see our gardens, where several brothers tend the herbs and vegetables that grace our table. The sight brings me peace, as it always does. These men, my brothers in Christ, laboring with their hands as our rule commands, finding holiness in the turning of soil and the patient nurturing of growing things. Near midday, as the sun reaches its zenith and the light grows too harsh for fine work, I set aside my quill and stretch my stiffened fingers. 'Tis then that Brother Aldrich appears in the doorway, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the stone floor. "Brother Thomas," he says, his voice carrying the authority of one who has shepherded souls for decades. "A word, if thou wouldst." I rise and follow him from the scriptorium, through the cloistered walkway where carved columns frame glimpses of our central garden. The sound of our feet echoes softly off the vaulted ceiling, and somewhere in the distance, I can hear the rhythmic striking of hammer on anvil from Brother Paul's smithy. We pause beneath an archway that looks out upon the walled garden where our medicinal herb. 'Tis a place of particular beauty, where roses climb the ancient stones, and lavender releases its perfume into the warm air. A fountain stands at the center, its waters dancing in the sunlight, fed by the same springs that nourish our wells. "Brother Thomas," Aldrich begins, his hands clasped behind his back, "I have received word from the Abbey of St. Mary, some 10 leagues hence. They have need of certain texts, copies of Augustine's works, and several treatises on canon law. The request comes from their new librarian, one who, like thyself, is skilled in the scribal arts." I nod, waiting for him to continue, though I sense there is more to this than a simple request for books. The librarian in question is Sister Marguerite, lately come from the convent at Fontevraud. She hath been charged with organizing their collection of manuscripts, many of which were damaged in a fire last winter. Our abbey hath been chosen to provide copies of the needed works. Given our reputation for fine scribal work, the name stirs something within me, though I cannot say what. Sister Marguerite. I repeat it silently, feeling the shape of the syllables on my tongue. "I would have thee prepare the requested texts," Aldrich says. "But more than that, I would have thee serve as our emissary in this matter. The good sisters have invited one of our scribes to visit their abbey, to assess their needs firsthand and perhaps to instruct their own copyists in certain techniques." My heart quickens at his word, though I strive to maintain the composure befitting a monk. To leave these walls, even briefly, to see something of the world beyond our valley, 'tis both thrilling and terrifying. "When would such a journey take place, Father?" I ask, using the title of respect due to our abbot. "Within the fortnight, if thou art willing. The roads are good now, with summer's warmth upon them, and Brother Marcus tells me thy work on the Psalter progresses well enough to permit a brief absence." I bow my head in acceptance. "I am at thy service, as always." "Good." His weathered face creases in what might be a smile. "'Tis meet that our finest scribe should represent our community in this matter. Sister Marguerite's reputation for learning precedes her, and I would not have our abbey found wanting in her eyes." As he speaks these words, something stirs within me, a curious anticipation that I tell myself stems merely from scholarly interest. Yet beneath that surface explanation lurks something deeper, a hunger I dare not acknowledge even to myself. The days that follow pass in a blur of preparation. I select the finest examples of our scriptorium's work, wrapping each manuscript in soft leather and oiled cloth to protect against the rigors of travel. Brother Marcus, with his infinite kindness, helps me choose suitable garments for the journey: a traveling cloak, sturdy boots, a leather satchel for carrying the precious books. During this time, I find my thoughts turning often to the abbey I'm to visit, and to its librarian. What manner of woman is this Sister Mar? In my experience, learned women are rare as winter roses, yet the very fact that she hath been entrusted with such responsibility speaks to her capabilities. I imagine her poring over ancient texts as I do, her eyes straining in candlelight as she traces the words of the Church Fathers, her hands careful and reverent as she turns the delicate pages. Such imaginings, I tell myself, are merely the natural curiosity of one scholar toward another. Yet I cannot entirely convince my heart of this reasoning. The night before my departure, I spend long hours in the chapel, kneeling before the altar of the red sanctuary's eternal vigil. The silence wraps around me like a cloak, broken only by the distant sound of wind in the bell tower and the soft settling of ancient stone. "Lord," I whisper, my voice barely audible in the vast space, "grant me wisdom in this undertaking. Let me serve thy glory and the good of both parties. Keep my heart pure and my mind fixed upon thee alone." Yet even as I speak these words, I sense a trembling within me, as if some part of my soul already knows what my conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. The future stretches before me like an unwritten page, full of possibilities both wondrous and terrible. Dawn comes too soon, painting the eastern windows of my cell with rose and gold. I gather my few belongings, the precious manuscripts, a breviary for the divine offices, a small wooden cross that was my mother's parting gift when I entered religious life. Brother Marcus appears at my door as I make final preparations, carrying a leather pouch containing provisions for the journey. "Travel well, my son," he says, though he is not so many years my senior. His kind eyes hold understanding, as if he senses the tumult in my heart. "Remember that God goes before thee, preparing thy—" The morning air is crisp and sweet, as I make my way to the stable yard where a donkey waits, patient and sure-footed for the journey ahead. Several of my brother monks have gathered to see me off, their faces grave in the early light. Brother Aldrich speaks a blessing over me and my mission, his hands tracing the sign of the cross in the air above my bowed head, and then I am through the gates, through the familiar walls of my sanctuary falling away behind me as the road winds down into the valley. The morning mist clings to the meadows like the breath of sleeping giants, and somewhere in the distance, a lark pours out its liquid song to welcome the dawn. As the miles pass beneath my mount's steady hooves, I find myself torn between anticipation and unease. The world beyond our valley seems larger and more vibrant than I remembered, the colors more intense, the sounds more varied, the very air alive with possibilities I had forgotten existed. Farm cottages send up ribbons of smoke from their chimneys, and children pause in their play to wave at the passing monk, their faces bright with curiosity. It has been 3 years since I last traveled these roads, 3 years since I chose the narrow gate that leads to eternal life. Much has changed in the wider world, I am certain. Kings have risen and fallen, battles have been fought, harvests have blessed or cursed the common folk. Yet here, in this rolling countryside, all seems much as it ever was. The eternal cycle of seasons, the patient labor of those who work the quiet rhythm of life that flows like a gentle river toward the sea. By midday, the sun burns high and bright, and I pause beneath the shade of an ancient oak to rest and refresh myself. The manuscripts in my satchel seem to pulse with their own weight, as if the knowledge contained within them presses to be shared. I think of Sister Marguerite awaiting my arrival, perhaps even now preparing for our meeting, and my heart quickens in a manner I tell myself is merely scholarly enthusiasm. The road climbs steadily through the afternoon, winding through forests of beech and oak where dappled sunlight dances on the leaf-strewn. The air grows cooler beneath the canopy of branches, and I catch glimpses of deer watching me with liquid eyes before bounding away in green shadows. These are God's cathedrals, I reflect, these towering trees and sunshot clearings where the divine presence seems as tangible as the earth beneath my feet. As evening approaches, the spires of St. Mary's Abbey appear above the tree line, their pale stone catching the last rays of the setting sun. My pulse quickens at the sight, and I urge my mount forward with growing anticipation. The abbey is larger than our own, its walls more ornate, its gardens more extensive. Yet there is about it the same sense of peace, the same withdrawal from the world's tumult that marks all such holy places. The porter who greets me at the gate is a woman of middle years, her face weathered by sun and wind, her manner brisk but kindly. She examines the letter of introduction from Brother Aldrich, then nods with satisfaction. "Welcome, Brother Thomas. I am Sister Joan, keeper of the gate. We have been expecting thee. Mother Superior desires to meet with thee this evening, if thou art not too wearied by thy journey." I assure her that I am well able to meet with the abbess, though in truth, my nerves sing with a tension I have not felt since my first days in religious life. As Sister Joan leads me through the abbey's corridors, I cannot help but notice the differences from my own monastery. Where our walls are plain stone, here are frescoes depicting scenes from the lives of saints. Where we have simple wooden crosses, here are works of art that speak of wealth and patronage. Yet beneath these outward differences lies the same essential spirit, the hush of sanctity, the sense of lives dedicated wholly to God's service, the quiet joy that comes from walking the narrow path. My cell for the night is small but comfortable, furnished with a narrow bed, a writing desk, and a window that looks out upon the abbey's gardens. As I unpack my few belongings, I can hear the voices of the sisters raised in vespers, their song floating through the evening air like incense. The sound draws me to the window, and I stand there listening as darkness gradually claims the sky and stars appear like scattered diamonds on velvet. Somewhere within these walls, Sister Marguerite tends to her books and manuscripts, perhaps working by candlelight, even as I worked so many evenings at my own scriptorium. Tomorrow I shall meet her, shall speak with her of the works that bind our two communities together in common cause. The thought fills me with an anticipation I tell myself is purely intellectual, though my heart whispers otherwise. A soft knock at my door interrupts my reverie. Sister Joan appears, bearing a tray with simple fare, bread, cheese, ale, and early apples from the abbey's orchards. "Mother Superior will receive thee after Compline," she says, setting the tray upon my writing desk. "Until then, rest and refresh thyself. The journey from St. Benedict's is not so long, but 'tis wearying nonetheless." I thank her for her kindness, and she departs, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the simple meal. As I eat, I find myself listening to the sounds of the abbey settling into its evening rhythm. Footsteps in distant corridor, the closing of doors, the whisper of robes against stone. When the bell for Compline rings across the darkened grounds, I make my way to the chapel as Sister Joan had instructed. The interior is even more magnificent than I had imagined, with soaring arches that seem to lift the very soul toward heaven. Carved saints gaze down from their niches with expressions of serene contemplation, and the great altar gleams with gold and precious stones. The sisters file in for the final office of their white veils ghostly in the candlelight. I take my place in a side chapel, trying to remain unobtrusive while still participating in the sacred liturgy. Their voices rise in the familiar chants, but there is something different about the sound, lighter, perhaps more ethereal than the deep tones of my brother monks. As the service progresses, I find my eyes searching the choir stalls, though I tell myself I am merely observing the differences in their customs. Yet I cannot deny that I am looking for someone in particular, though I would not know her if I saw her. Sister Marguerite remains a mystery, a name without a face, a reputation without form. The office concludes, and the sisters file out in the same silence with which they entered. I remain in my place, offering my own prayers for the success of my mission, and for wisdom in all my dealings here. Yet beneath these proper petitions, my heart harbors thoughts I dare not voice, even to myself. When I finally emerge from the chapel, Sister Joan awaits to escort me to the abbess's quarters. Mother Superior Margaret, for that is her name, sharing the same as her librarian, though spelled in the English fashion, proves to be a woman of perhaps 50 years. Her face marked by the calm authority of one accustomed to shepherding souls. Her private study reflects both learning and devotion, with shelves of books lining the walls and several beautiful manuscripts displayed on carved stands. She greets me with warmth, tempered by proper reserve, gesturing for me to take a seat beside her desk. "Brother Thomas, thou art most welcome here. Abbot Aldrich speaks highly of thy skills, and thy work precedes thy reputation." She indicates one of the displayed manuscripts, and I recognize it as a psalter I completed some months past, one of several we had sent as gifts to neighboring religious communities. "Thy words honor me, Mother Superior, though any skill I possess comes from God alone." Spoken like a true servant of the Most High, she settles back in her chair, her hands folded in her lap. "I trust Abbot Aldrich hath explained the nature of our need. Indeed, the fire damage to thy scriptorium, the loss of certain essential texts. Our community is most willing to assist in restoring what hath been lost." Her face grows grave as she speaks of the disaster. "'Twas the work of but moments, yet it undid the labor of generations. Our copying room, our bindery, nearly half our collection, all reduced to ash and memory. By God's grace none of our sisters were harmed, but the loss to learning," she sighs deeply. "Well, thou canst imagine. I indeed can imagine such devastation, and the thought sends a chill through. All those hours of patient work, all that accumulated knowledge, gone in an instant. 'Tis a reminder of how fragile are the things we hold most precious. We have been working to rebuild," she continues, "but the task is vast. Sister Marguerite, our librarian, hath been tireless in her efforts, but she is but one person, however capable. Thy expertise, and the manuscripts thou hast brought, will aid us greatly." At the mention of the librarian's name, I feel that same strange stirring I experienced when Abbot Aldrich first spoke of her. I look forward to meeting Sister Marguerite and learning of her specific needs, and she is most eager to meet with thee. Few among our number possess her depth of learning. She studied at Fontevraud before coming to us, and her knowledge of Latin and Greek far exceeds my own. I believe thou wilt find her most stimulating company from a scholarly perspective. There is something in her tone, some subtle emphasis that makes me glance at her more closely, but her face reveals nothing beyond proper abbatial concern for her charges. I shall place myself entirely at her disposal for the duration of my stay. Excellent. She will meet with thee on the morrow, after prime. For now, I shall not keep thee longer from thy rest. The cell we have prepared should serve thy needs, and if thou dost require anything, Sister Joan will see to it. I take my leave of the abbess and make my way back through the quiet corridors to my temporary lodging. The abbey sleeps around me, its inhabitants surrendered to the peace that comes with lives wholly dedicated to God's service. Yet as I prepare for my own rest, I find sleep elusive. Through my small window, I can see a portion of the abbey's gardens, bathed now in silver moon. Somewhere beyond those peaceful beds of herbs and flowers, lies the scriptorium where Sister Marguerite labors to rebuild what the flames devour. Perhaps she too lies wakeful this night, preparing for our meeting on the morrow, wondering what manner of man this brother Thomas might prove to be. The thought that she might be thinking of me, even in passing, sends a warmth through my veins that I struggle to dismiss as mere vanity. I am here on holy business, I remind myself, to serve God's glory through the preservation of sacred learning. All other considerations are worldly distractions that have no place in a consecrated heart. Yet as I finally drift towards sleep, it is not the familiar prayers that occupy my mind, but rather questions I dare not answer. What will she be like, this Sister Marguerite? Will her learning match her reputation? And why does the thought of meeting her fill me with an anticipation that has nothing to do with manuscripts or theological discourse? The bells of prime wake me from dreams I cannot quite remember, though they leave behind a residue of warmth and longing that troubles my morning prayers. I dress carefully, more carefully perhaps than the occasion warrants, and make my way to the chapel for the first office of the day. The sisters' voices rise in the ancient chants, and I find myself once again scanning the choir stalls, searching for I know not what. When the service ends, Sister Joan approaches with a smile that seems somehow knowing. "Sister Marguerite awaits thee in the scriptorium," she says. "I shall escort thee, though I warn thee, she is deep in her work, and may seem somewhat distracted." We walk through the cloistered passages, past gardens where morning dew still glitters on the leaves of careful plantings. The air is sweet with the scent of roses and lavender, and somewhere nearby, bees hum their drowsy songs among the blossoms. The scriptorium occupies a large chamber on the abbey's eastern side, where tall windows capture the morning light. As we approach, I can hear the soft sounds of work within, the scratch of quills, the rustle of parchment, the careful scraping of a knife against stretched hide. Sister Joan pauses at the threshold and knocks gently upon the wooden frame. "Sister Marguerite, Brother Thomas from St. Benedict's hath arrived." A voice responds from within, clear and melodious even in its distraction. "Enter, please. I am just finishing this rubric." We step into the chamber, and my eyes need a moment to adjust from the brightness of the corridor to the softer light with. Several sisters work at copying desks, their heads bent over their tasks. But it is not to them that my gaze is drawn. Near the largest window stands a desk where a figure in white bends over a manuscript, a fine brush poised in her hand as she applies gold leaf to an illuminated initial. Even from behind, there is something about her posture, the graceful curve of her neck, the delicate precision of her movements, that speaks of both nobility and learning. "Sister Marguerite," Sister Joan says softly, "thy guest." She turns then, and I feel the world shift beneath my feet like the deck of a storm-tossed ship. Her face is pale as ivory beneath her white veil, with fine features that speak of noble birth. But 'tis her eyes that stop my breath, large and dark, intelligent and searching, seeming to look not merely at me but into me, as if she could read the very thoughts written upon my soul. For a moment that seems to stretch into eternity, we simply regard each other in silence. I am aware that I should speak, should introduce myself properly, but the words seem lodged in my throat like stones. There is something in her gaze, recognition, perhaps, or surprise, or something deeper that I dare not name. "Brother Thomas." Her voice is low and musical, with an accent that speaks of noble education. "I am Sister Marguerite. Welcome to our abbey." She sets down her brush with careful precision and rises, her movements graceful as a swan upon still. As she approaches, I catch the faint scent of parchment and ink that clings to her robes, mixed with something else, lavender perhaps, or rosewater used to cleanse her hands. "Sister Marguerite." I manage to find my voice, though it sounds strange to my own ears. "I bring greetings from Abbot Aldrich and all the brothers of St. Benedict. We are honored to assist in thy work, and we are grateful beyond words for thy assistance." She stands perhaps an arm's length away, close enough that I can see the fine texture of her skin, the way the morning light catches in her dark eyes. "The manuscripts thou hast brought, may I examine them?" I nod, not trusting myself to speak, and retrieve the leather satchel from where Sister Joan has set it upon a nearby table. As I unwrap the first manuscript, my hands tremble slightly, though whether from nervousness or something else, I cannot say. Sister Marguerite leans closer to examine the work, and her proximity sends a warmth through that has nothing to do with the morning sun streaming through. I catch again that subtle fragrance that seems to be hers alone, and when she speaks, I feel her breath whisper against my cheek. "This is exquisite work," she murmurs, her fingers hovering reverently above the illuminated pages. "The gold leaf here, the way thou hast handled the ultramarine, 'tis artistry of the highest order." Her praise sends a flush of pleasure through me that I tell myself is merely professional pride. Yet when she looks up at me, our faces mere inches apart, I see something in her eyes that mirrors the tumult in my own heart. "Thou art too much to say. I am but a servant of seeking to honor God through such poor skill as he hath given me. There is naught poor about this skill." She straightens, putting a proper distance between us once more, but I can see that she too has been affected by our proximity. A faint color touches her pale cheeks, and her hands tremble slightly as she turns the pages. Sister Joan, who has been waiting silently by the door, clears her throat gently. "I shall leave thee to thy work, then." Brother Thomas, if thou dost need anything, I am at thy service. She departs, leaving Sister Marguerite and me alone in the scriptorium with the other work sisters. Yet despite their presence, it feels as if we are isolated in our own world, connected by something that transcends the sacred texts spread between us. Perhaps thou wouldst like to see what we have managed to salvage? Sister Marguerite asks, her voice carefully controlled. And then we might discuss thy community's contributions more specifically. I nod, and she leads me to another table where several damaged manuscripts lie in various states of restoration. As she explains the work being done, her passion for the task becomes evident. Her eyes light with enthusiasm as she describes techniques for cleaning smoke-stained parchment, methods for rebinding damaged codices, plans for recreating lost illuminations based on surviving fragments. Here, she says, indicating a particularly damaged psalter, we have managed to save perhaps half the text, but the remaining portions. She sighs with evident frustration. Without a complete exemplar to work from, 'tis nearly impossible to restore properly. I examine the manuscript, noting where fire and smoke have rendered the vellum illegible. 'Tis fortunate that we have among our collection a psalter of the same recension. I could prepare a complete copy for thy use. Her face brightens with such genuine joy that my heart skips like a stone upon water. Truly? O Brother Thomas, thou canst not imagine what a gift that this psalter belonged to our foundress. 'Tis one of our most treasured possessions, despite its current condition. As we work through the morning, examining manuscripts and discussing restoration technique, I find myself falling under the spell of her intellect as much as her beauty. Her knowledge of Latin rivals my own, her Greek exceeds it, and her understanding of scribal techniques suggests years of dedicated study. Yet there is nothing pedantic or dry about her learning. It burns within her like a flame, illuminating everything she touches. More troubling still is the growing awareness that she seems as affected by our interaction as I am. When our hands accidentally brush as we reach for the same manuscript, we both draw back as if stung. When she leans close to point out some detail in a damaged text, I see her pulse quickening in the hollow of her throat. When our eyes meet across a spread of ancient pages, the air between us seems to shimmer with possibilities neither of us dares acknowledge. By the time the bell rings for sext, I realize that something profound has shifted within me. The walls I have built around my heart these past 3 years, the certainty of my vocation, the peace I had found in cloistered life, all of it seems suddenly fragile as spring ice beneath the warm sun of her presence. As the other sisters set aside their work and file from the scriptorium for the midday office, Sister Marguerite and I are left alone with our manuscripts and our dangerous proximity. She stands at her desk, ostensibly organizing her materials, but I can see the tension in her shoulders, the careful way she avoids meeting my eyes. We should attend the office, she says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Indeed, we should, yet neither of us moves. The silence stretches between us, heavy with unspoken words and forbidden longings. Through the tall windows I can see the abbey's gardens where roses climb the ancient walls and fountains dance in the sunlight. It is a scene of perfect peace, yet my heart races like that of a hunted stag. Brother Thomas, she begins, then stops, her hands clenching and unclenching at her sides. Sister Marguerite. She turns to face me then, and I see in her eyes the same struggle that wages war within my own soul. For a moment, the veil of propriety slips, and we stand revealed to each other in all our human frailty and longing. We must be careful, she whispers, and I understand that she speaks not of the precious manuscripts that surround us, but of something far more fragile and dangerous, the growing connection that threatens to consume us both. I know. The bells continue to ring, calling us to prayer, to duty, to the safe boundaries of our religious life. Yet as we walk together toward the chapel, careful to maintain proper distance between us, I know with terrible certainty that something has been irrevocably changed. The seed of desire has been planted, and no amount of prayer or fasting will make it grow into anything but heartbreak. The afternoon passes in a blur of forced normalcy. I attend the office of sext with the sisters, trying to focus on the ancient words of the Psalms, rather than on the figure kneeling a few stalls away from me. Her voice blends with the others in perfect harmony, yet to my ears, it stands out like a golden thread in a tapestry of silver. After the service, Mother Superior approaches with a suggestion that we spend some time in the Abbey's famous gardens while the light is good. "'Tis one of our great prides," she explains, as she guides us through the cloistered walks. Sister Marguerite herself designed much of the herb garden when she first came to us. The gardens are indeed magnificent, laid out in careful geometric patterns that please the eye while serving practical purposes. Beds of medicinal herbs alternate with plots of vegetables, and along the walls, fruit trees spread their branches heavy with the promise of autumn harvest. At the center of it all stands a fountain carved from white stone. its waters singing a gentle song as they fall into a circular basin. "'Tis beautiful," I say, and mean it. "Thou hast created a paradise within these walls." Sister Marguerite walks beside us, her hands folded within her sleeves, her eyes downcast. "I but followed the pattern established by our predecessor. The gardens here are ancient. Some say they were planted by the abbey's first sisters, 3 centuries past." We pause beside a bed of roses whose red blooms seem to glow like rubies in the afternoon sun. The fragrance is intoxicating, sweet and heavy, speaking of summer's fullness and the promise of seasons yet to come. Mother Superior bends to examine one particularly perfect specimen, and in that moment, Sister Marguerite raises her eyes to meet. The look that passes between us is brief, but charged with meaning. In her dark gaze, I see reflected my own struggle, my own growing awareness of desires that should have no place in consecrated hearts. For just an instant, the carefully maintained walls between us crumble, and we stand naked before each other in spirit if not in flesh. Then Mother Superior straightens, and the moment passes, leaving us once again in the proper roles of visiting monk and abbey librarian. Yet the damage is done, or perhaps I should say, the truth has been acknowledged. What grows between us is more than scholarly admiration, more than the natural pleasure of finding a kindred spirit in learning. As we continue our tour of the gardens, I find myself acutely aware of Sister Marguerite's presence beside me. The rustle of her habit as she moves, the way sunlight catches the edge of her white veil, the graceful gesture of her hands as she points out various planting. Every detail seems magnified, as if my very soul has developed a heightened sensitivity to her being. We pause at a secluded corner where medicinal herbs grow in careful. Here, away from the main paths, the garden feels more intimate, enclosed by high walls covered in climbing roses. Mother Superior excuses herself to speak with a sister who tends the beehives, leaving Sister Marguerite and me alone among the fragrant plants. "This chamomile," she says, kneeling beside a patch of white flowers, "we use to calm troubled sleep, and here, the lavender for headaches and anxious hearts." I kneel beside her, ostensibly to examine the plants more closely, but in truth drawn by her proximity like iron to lodestone. Our knees nearly touch in the soft earth, and when she reaches to pinch a sprig of rosemary, her sleeve brushes against my hand. "And what?" I ask, my voice rough with emotions I struggle to control. "Dost thou prescribe for hearts that know too much peace, yet suddenly find themselves restless?" She stills, her fingers frozen above the herb garden. When she turns to look at me, her eyes hold a depth of understanding that stops my breath. "There is no herb for that ailment, Brother Thomas," she whispers. "Would that there were." The fountain's gentle song seems to grow louder in the silence that follows, as if the very garden conspires to hide our danger. I know I should rise, should step away, should return us to safer ground of manuscript discussion and scholarly debate. Instead, I find myself leaning closer. "Sister Marguerite," I begin, then stop. What can I say that would not damn us both? What words exist for this impossible situation? "I know," she breathes, and in those 2 simple words lies all the acknowledgement we dare allow ourselves. She knows, as I know, as I, that something profound has awakened between us. She knows, as I know, that it threatens everything we have sworn to hold sacred. Footsteps on the gravel path announce Mother Superior's return, and we spring apart like guilty children. By the time she rounds the corner, we are both standing at proper distance, examining the herb garden with feigned scholarly interest. "I trust Sister Marguerite is sharing the secrets of our medicinal plantings?" the abbess asks with a smile that seems to hold more knowledge than her words suggest. "Indeed," I manage to reply. "The arrangement is most instructive." The remainder of the afternoon passes in careful propriety. We return to the scriptorium where I assist Sister Marguerite in cataloguing the damaged manuscript, our interaction limited to professional necessity. Yet even these mundane exchanges carry undercurrents of meaning that leave us both strained and hyper. As evening approaches and the bell for vespers calls across the abbey grounds, I find myself dreading the end of our working day. Tomorrow, I am scheduled to return to St. Benedict's, taking with me detailed notes of the abbey's needs and a promise to send the requested manuscripts within the month. The thought of leaving fills me with a desolation that has nothing to do with incomplete scholarly work. After the evening office, Mother Superior again invites me to her study. This time her manner seems less cordial, more searching, as if she has observed something during the day that concerns her. "Brother Thomas," she begins without preamble, "I trust thy visit hath been profitable, that thou hast learned what thou needest to serve our request?" "Most profitable, Mother Superior. Sister Marguerite hath been exceedingly helpful in identifying our community's ability to assist thy needs." "Good." She pauses, studying my face with the penetrating gaze of one accustomed to reading souls. "I have observed that thou and our librarian work well together. Perhaps too well." My heart stumbles at her words, but I force my expression to remain calm. I fear I do not understand thy meaning, do thou not? Her voice carries a gentle but unmistakable warning. Brother Thomas, I have shepherded consecrated souls for nigh on 20 years. I know the signs of hearts that wander from their chosen path, however pure the initial intention might be. The blood drains from my face. Mother Superior, I assure thee, she raises a hand to stop my protestation. I do not question thy virtue, or that of Sister Marguerite. Both of you are clearly dedicated to your vocation. But dedication of the mind and dedication of the heart are not always the same thing. I sit in miserable silence, unable to deny what she has so clearly perceived. Sister Marguerite, she continues, came to us from Fontevraud, bearing wounds that have not entirely healed. Her family arranged a marriage when she was but 17, a political alliance that would have benefited their holdings considerably. On the very eve of her wedding, she fled to the convent, claiming God had called her to religious life. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. I had imagined her choosing the religious life from pure devotion, not fleeing from something she feared more than the constraints of the cloister. Her family pursued her for months, Mother Superior continues, threatening legal action, offering bribes to have her returned. Only the direct intervention of the Bishop of Poitiers secured her right to remain. She has been with us these 2 years now, and I had hoped, but perhaps some wounds run too deep for even religious life to heal completely. What wouldst thou have me do? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Return to thy monastery, Brother Thomas. Send us the manuscripts we need, but send them by another's hand. Do not see her again. The finality in her words strikes me like a death sentence, yet I know she speaks wisdom, painful though it may be. And if she were to leave religious life? If she were to choose another path? Mother Superior's expression grows stern. Then she would be free to make that choice, as would any soul who finds they have mistaken their calling. But I will not have her decisions influenced by a liaison that can lead nowhere but heartbreak. I bow my head in acceptance of her judgment, though every fiber of my being rebels against it. I understand. I pray that thou dost. Now, I suggest thou spend thy remaining hours here in prayer and contemplation. Morning comes early, and thy departure should be equally so. I leave her presence feeling as if I carry a stone in my chest. The corridors of the abbey, which had seemed so welcoming upon my arrival, now feel like the passages of a tomb. My cell, when I reach it, offers no comfort, only the narrow bed and writing desk, where I am supposed to prepare for my return to the life I had thought complete and satisfying. Sleep eludes me entirely. I spend the dark hours pacing the small space, wrestling with thoughts and feelings I cannot reconcile with my vows. Through my window, I can see a portion of the garden where Sister Marguerite and I had knelt among the herbs, where something indefinable but precious had passed between. Just before dawn, I hear soft footsteps in the corridor outside my cell. They pause, and I hold my breath, wondering if... But then they move on, leaving me with nothing but the sound of my own racing heart. I rise and dress for prime, gathering my few belongings with hands that shake despite my efforts to remain calm. In the chapel, I take my accustomed place in the side aisle and try to lose myself in the familiar rhythms of prayer. But my eyes seek her among the white-veiled figures in the choir stall, and when I find her, I see that she too looks strained and sleepless. After the service, as the sisters file out for their morning meal, she approaches me with obvious reluctance. Her face is pale, her dark eyes shadowed with something that might be despair. Brother Thomas, she says quietly, I have heard thou dost depart this morning. I do. My work here is complete. She nods, though I see her hands tremble where they are clasped before her. I wanted to thank thee for thy assistance, for the manuscripts, she cannot finish, and I must thank thee, and Sister Marguerite, for thy kindness, for sharing thy knowledge, for showing me. I too find myself unable to complete the thought. We stand there in the empty chapel, the morning light streaming through the windows to paint patterns of gold and blue across the stone floor. Between us lies everything I cannot say, everything we must not acknowledge. In another world, she whispers, so softly I almost cannot hear. In another life, in another world, I agree, my voice breaking on the... She turns then and walks away, her white robe seeming to float in the colored light. I watch until she disappears through the doorway, carrying with her something essential that I will never recover. The journey back to St. Benedict's passes in a haze of grief and self-recrimination. I had come to this abbey to serve God's glory through the sharing of sacred knowledge. Instead, I had discovered desires that threatened the very foundation of my vocation. The manuscripts in my satchel seemed to mock me with their holy words and illuminated prayers. Brother Marcus greets my return with evident relief, though his wise eyes note my troubled state immediately. How went thy mission, my son? He asks as we walk from the stable yard to the abbey proper. The sisters' needs are great, I reply, which is truth enough. I have made detailed notes of what we can provide. That evening, I meet with Abbot Aldrich to report on my visit. I speak of manuscripts and restoration techniques, of the Abbey's impressive library and gardens, of Mother Superior's gratitude for our assistance. I do not speak of dark eyes and gentle voices, of hands that trembled when they touched mine, of a connection that transcended the boundaries of religious propriety. And the librarian? Aldrich asks. Sister Marguerite? I trust her reputation for learning proved accurate? Most accurate, I managed to say. She is exceptionally knowledgeable. He nods, apparently satisfied with my report. We shall prepare the manuscripts they require and send them within the fortnight. Perhaps Brother Marcus might oversee their delivery. His diplomatic skills are well suited to such missions. I agree readily, though the thought of another making that journey, of another seeing her bent over her precious books, fills me with irrational jealousy. The days that follow pass like a fever dream. I throw myself into my scribal work with desperate intensity, as if the formation of perfect letters might somehow restore order to my disordered heart. I attend every office, participate in every community prayer, seek guidance in the familiar words of Scripture and the Church Fathers, yet nothing provides the peace I seek. At night, I lie wakeful in my cell, remembering the sound of her voice, the way sunlight caught in her dark eyes, the moment in the garden when propriety fell away, and we stood revealed to each other in all our human longing. 3 weeks after my return, Brother Marcus departs for St. Mary's Abbey with the requested manuscripts carefully packed in leather and oiled cloth. He returns after 2 days with expressions of gratitude from Mother Superior, and a brief note acknowledging the receipt of our gifts. There is no personal message, no word from Sister Marguerite herself. I tell myself this is as it should be, that clean breaks heal most quickly, yet the absence of any communication feels like another small death. Autumn deepens into winter, and still I find no peace. My work suffers, my prayers feel hollow, my participation in community life becomes mere pretense. Brother Marcus watches me with growing concern, and I suspect he has reported his observations to Abbot Aldrich. Then, on a gray December morning when frost covers the Abbey's gardens like a shroud of crystal, a messenger arrives at our gates. He carries a letter bearing the seal of St. Mary's Abbey, addressed to our abbot in Mother Superior's familiar hand. I am not privy to its contents, but I see the grave expression on Aldrich's face when he emerges from his study. He summons me immediately, and I go to him with a heart already heavy with premonition. Brother Thomas, he says without preamble, I have received word from Mother Superior Margaret. It seems Sister Marguerite has left St. Mary's Abbey. The words hit me like a physical blow. Left? But where hath she gone? That is unclear. She departed in the night, leaving only a letter explaining that she had been mistaken in her vocation. Mother Superior writes that she is concerned for the young woman's welfare, traveling alone in winter with little preparation. I stare at him in shock, my mind struggling to process this news. She has left her life of prayer and contemplation, abandoned the security of the cloister, ventured into a world that will not look kindly upon a former nun without family or resources to support her. This troubles me greatly, Aldrich continues, his weathered face creased with concern. A woman alone on the winter roads. 'Tis dangerous beyond measure. Mother Superior wonders if perhaps thy visit might have unsettled her in some way. The accusation hangs unspoken between us, but I hear it clearly nonetheless. My presence, my obvious attraction to her, my failure to maintain proper boundaries, all of it has contributed to this disaster. I must find her, I say, the words leaving my lips before I can consider their implications. Aldrich's eyebrows rise. Brother Thomas! She could die out there, alone in winter, without protection. I am already mentally planning the journey, calculating distances and likely routes. I have to know she is safe. And then what? Thou art bound by vows, as was she until she chose to break them. What future could there be in such a meeting? I have no answer for, only the desperate certainty that I cannot rest while she faces unknown dangers in the world beyond the cloister's walls. Grant me leave to search for her. If nothing else, let me ensure she reaches safety. Perhaps find her shelter with some worthy family where she can begin again. Aldrich studies me for a long moment, his wise eyes seeing deeper words. And if I refuse, then I fear I shall follow her path and leave these walls as well. The admission hangs between us like a sword. I have threatened to break my own vows, to abandon the community that has been my home and family for 3 years. It is spiritual treason, yet I cannot call back the words. I see. Aldrich leans back in his chair, his fingers steepled before him. Perhaps this is God's will working in ways we cannot comprehend. Very well, Brother Thomas. Thou hast my leave to depart, not as a member of this community on official business, but as a man following his conscience. If thou dost find her, if thou dost choose a different path than the one thou hast walked these past years, I will not condemn thee. His words are both permission and absolution, and I feel something loosen in my chest that has been tight as a fist since that morning in the garden at St. Mary. I pack quickly, warm clothes, what little money I possess, provisions for the journey. As I prepare to leave, Brother Marcus appears at my cell door, his kind face sad but understanding. "Go with God, my son," he says simply, "and know that if thy path leads thee back to us, thou wilt always be welcome." I embrace him, this gentle man who has been father and friend to me, and turn away before emotion can unmake my resolve. The winter roads are treacherous, but my determination burns bright enough to warm me through the coldest nights. I follow rumors and whispered reports, tracking a lone woman traveling south toward the ports where ships might carry her to France or beyond. I find her at last in a village inn 2 days' ride from the coast, huddled in the common room before a smoky fire, her white nun's habit exchanged for the rough brown wool of a peasant woman. She is thinner than when I last saw her, her face drawn with fatigue, and something that might be despair. When she sees me enter the inn, her dark eyes widen with shock, then fill with tears that spill down her pale cheeks. "Thomas," she whispers, my name spoken without the formal address of our former love. "Marguerite." I cross to her table, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Thank God I found thee. Thou shouldst not have come. Thou hast thy vows, thy community, as didst thou, yet here we both sit in peasant garb beside a common fire." She laughs through her tears, a sound both broken and beautiful. What fools we are, to throw away paradise for the chance of something that may not even exist. I reach across the rough wooden table and take her hands in mine, no longer caring who might see or what they might think. Her fingers are cold, but they warm quickly in my grasp. "It exists," I say with all the certainty in my heart. "This feeling between us, it is real, it is precious, and it is worth whatever sacrifice it demands. And if we are wrong, if what we feel is merely the rebellion of flesh against spirit, if we destroy ourselves for an illusion, then we shall face that destruction together, as we could never face the slow death of separation." She studies my face in the firelight, searching for something, doubt, perhaps, or fear. Instead, she finds only love and determination. "I have passage booked on a ship that sails tomorrow for Normandy," she says quietly. I thought to seek refuge at Fontevraud, to beg forgiveness, and perhaps find some other way to serve God. Now," she turns her hands in mine so that our palms touch, our fingers interlacing like the illuminated borders of a precious manuscript. "Now I think perhaps God's service takes many forms, and that love itself may be a kind of prayer." We sit there as the fire burns low, and the other travelers retire to their chambers, speaking in whispers of the future we might build together. It will not be easy. We have no family to receive us, no fortune to cushion our way. We will face the world's censure, the church's disapproval, the practical difficulties of two former religious learning to live as husband and wife. Yet, as dawn breaks through the inn's small windows, painting the world in shades of rose and gold, I know with absolute certainty that we have chosen rightly. Whatever trials await us, we will face them together. Whatever joys God grants us, we will share them as one flesh, one heart, one soul united in love that transcends the narrow boundaries of cloister walls. We are married by the village priest that very morning, two wayfarers seeking shelter in the storm of their own making. Our wedding feast is bread and ale shared with strangers who become witnesses to our unlikely union. Our marriage bed is a simple room above the inn, where we discover that the passion long denied can bloom into something both sacred and sweet. Years have passed since that winter day when we chose love over duty, each other over the safety of religious life. We found our way to a small village in the Loire Valley, where my skills as a scribe and hers as a healer have earned us a modest living and the respect of our neighbors. Our children, two daughters with their mother's dark eyes and quick minds, grow in grace and knowledge, learning to read from the manuscripts I still create in my workshop behind our cottage. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, when I work by candlelight on a commissioned psalter or book of hours, I think of the brothers I left behind at St. Benedict. I pray they have found peace in their chosen path, as I have found it in mine. Sometimes I wonder if Brother Marcus still tends the scriptorium, if Abbot Aldrich still shepherds his flock with wisdom and compassion. But when Marguerite stirs in our bed, when she calls my name softly through the darkness, all such thoughts fade before the immediate reality of love made manifest in the world. We chose each other, chose this life, chose to believe that God's grace can encompass even those who break their vows for love. In the garden behind our cottage, where roses climb the walls and herbs grow in careful rows, I have built a small fountain whose waters sing the same gentle song I met long ago afternoon at St. Mary. Sometimes, when the children are asleep and the work of the day is done, Marguerite and I sit beside it in the gathering dusk, our hands intertwined as they were that first day in the walled garden where our hearts recognized their true home. If this tale hath touched thy heart, bestow thy favor upon this video, subscribe to the channel, and share thy thoughts in the comments. To hear the next tale, click upon the box to the